chances are if you have kids, they are in school right now. So the question is, how would you feel if your child came home without homework? An elementary school in Ireland is asking students to watch news instead of hitting the books after class. So is this a good idea? Do we like this idea of news replacing homework? What do you think? What do you think about this?
I think that, my son gets a ton of homework. My daughter gets less, but so in our house at night, it's like, it's horror time because you're trying to make dinner, you're trying to work out what the Reformation means, why was the Duke of Marlborough such a good, person, so I go back to history all the time. But I think what I try and do is with my son is say, yeah, go beyond the homework. So I think watching the news is great because he was recently doing a whole history essay on the wars between France and England, which has been going on for many, many years, hundreds of years, centuries. And I said, yeah, do your essay, do what the teachers want, but at the end, talk about Brexit. Because that's kind of what the news is.
Because you know what? It is all about news.
Yes.
We have 4 adult children, and when they were growing up, I said, when they were in grade 3, they were 9, I'm never telling you to do homework or what time to go to bed. And they looked at me and they said, okay, but the difference was that they had to know what was going on, and they couldn't have attitude in the morning. I used a different word at the time. But my point is, to this day, they take responsibility, they self-regulate, and they know what's going on. So, working for CTV News, I'm in the news camp.
I think I'm going to get in trouble for my answer because I actually think no homework is fantastic, and I actually don't want kids watching the news necessarily. I think, there's some things on the news that children don't need to be seeing. And look at it this way. I also think age matters, right? So we're not talking about high school children here. We're talking about elementary school children. There's no evidence to suggest that there is an improvement in academic achievement. They've done study after study. So in many ways, homework just ends up being busy work. And they're already in school for 6 hours. And then there's extracurricular before, after school as well. Give them time to play.
Yeah.
Playing is important, right?
Absolutely no playing. No.
There's a book it's called The Dolphin Way. I suggest you read it.
Wait, my kids are adults. I don't need
You don't need it. You don't need it.
Okay.
I agree with you, Pooja. News can be hard sometimes for kids, but the thing is, kids know more than we think they know.
Yeah.
And when things happen and kids themselves are the news, if a child has been hurt or taken or something has happened, there's chatter in the schoolyard.
Yeah.
There is.
And so I really like the opportunity to sit down and watch the news with my kids because I want to be able to put things into context. If things are highly disturbing, we can always turn it off. But just to be able to have my voice in the mix and not have them kind of, deal with it on their own in the schoolyard or wherever it is important.
Yeah. Andre wrote to us on Facebook and said, as an elementary school teacher, I had a no homework policy. I wish you were my son's teacher, by the way, Miranda. And he's only in grade 1 and he came home with homework recently and I was like, what? It ruined my weekend. Anyway,
Did you do the work?
I did. I'm kind of exaggerating, but a school day demands an incredible amount of effort. I found that homework was often a source of unnecessary stress and conflict at home. And I hear it. I'm just starting. I've got a 6-and-a-half-year-old, just starting this idea of doing homework, and I can see how stressful it can be. But the idea that watching news is going to be less stressful for our children, I'm not sure I buy into that. I also feel like not all news is created equal. I've seen a lot of crappy, lazy journalism, and depending on what channel you're on, I think it can skew stories or amplify certain stories or distort certain stories. Yeah. And some of them are quite frank. Some things are built on business. And that old saying, if it bleeds, it leads. And what I don't want is to create extra fear. I'm already saying to my son every time he goes out the door, watch out! No one can see you. No one's paying attention. I don't need him to be that much more. I don't want him to enter into the world more fearfully.
I think you have to be selective, and as parents, we have to curate, the news that they watch. But I think sometimes with homework, it's just filling in numbers. It's teachers giving it. My twins are 12. I have a boy and a girl, and it's just my son gets so much homework that he's still working till 9 o'clock in the evening, and that's just wrong. Yeah. But there's fear and anxiety about it. However, I think what I try and do is always get him to go beyond the homework. But I do, in our house, we have this great game on the way to school, which is what did Donald Trump do today?
Oh, wow.
And that's great, you know, and everyone's like, oh boy, that's what Donald Trump did today, but it allows us to get into the news.
Yeah.
So we've got to make it fun as well.
Yeah.
Oh, see, there was no fun going on in our household. What are the top 3 business stories of
Oh
the
my
day?
gosh.
And let's break it down. I wish I was kidding. Carry on.
And look, I should also mention I grew up watching the news myself, and I worked in news for almost 20 years. So, you know, I'm somebody who, I'm a product of that. But I think I would actually lie to the teachers and say, yeah, the kid watched the news, yeah. And then not let them watch the news.
not let them watch the news.
I don't know if there'll be a test later. That would be a part that we have to factor in. If there was
Yes.
a pop quiz, we'd have to make sure that they did watch the news in that case. But
Yeah, my eldest daughter gets tested on the news and what she knows.
And so she should.
Yeah.